American pressure on Israel, not Israel, while visiting Israel, and unacceptable to Israel, to the land of Israel. Welcome to Eyes on Israel. I'm Rabbi Pesach Wilicki. Last weekend, the Islamic Republic of Iran attacked Israel. In what was the largest ever missile attack in the region, Iran launched 170 attack drones, more than 30 cruise missiles, and 120 ballistic missiles at Israel. According to the Israel Defense Forces, none of the drones or cruise missiles even made it into Israeli territory. And of the 120 ballistic missiles, only 5 made it through the defenses of Israel and of other nations, including Saudi Arabia and Jordan. According to the IDF spokesman, General Daniel Hagari, only a single 10-year-old girl was injured in the attacks. The attack was the terrorist regime in Iran's way of retaliating for an Israeli airstrike on the Iranian consulate in the Syrian capital of Damascus, carried out on April 1st. That airstrike by Israel destroyed the consulate building, killing at least 7 officials, including Mohammad Reza Zahedi, a top commander in Iran's elite Revolutionary Guards, and senior commander Mohammad Hadi Haji Rahimi. Zahedi, a former commander of the IRGC's ground forces, Air Force, and the deputy commander of its operations, was the most high-profile Iranian target killed since President Donald Trump ordered the assassination of Qasem Soleimani in Baghdad in 2020. 2 days later, on April 3rd, the Coalition Council of Islamic Revolution Forces, affiliated with the more conservative ideological faction in Iran, published a notice of mourning and appreciation for Zahedi. The notice praised Zahedi for, quote, the strategic role in consolidating and strengthening the resistance front and in the planning and execution of the Al-Aqsa flood. Al-Aqsa flood is how Hamas, Hezbollah, and Iran refer to the mass murder, rape, and other atrocities committed on October 7th. In the wake of the Iranian attack on Israel of last weekend, President Joe Biden reportedly told Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu that the U.S. would neither participate in nor support any offensive action against Iran in response. Now, I believe that I speak for all Israelis when I say that nobody on our side wants the U.S. to participate in any offensive action on our behalf. Israel has never and will never ask that anyone fight any war for us. But support? Why would the U.S. not support any offensive action by Israel? Israel may or may not decide to take such action. That's a calculation that Israel must make based on a range of factors, some of which we'll hear about from our expert guest in a few moments. But should Israel decide to attack Iran, should Israel decide that the time is right to deal with the Iranian threat, why would the U.S. not support it? Let's remember that Iran refers to Israel as the little Satan and the United States as the great Satan. Iran calls for death to America as much as it calls for the destruction of Israel. So why would the U.S. be opposed to Israel striking a tyrannical terrorist regime that is the sworn enemy of the United States and has just launched a mass kinetic attack on Israel? And a few days after the attack from Iran, it was reported that Iran had informed the U.S. in advance that it would be attacking Israel, and that the U.S. responded that any attack on Israel should remain, quote, within certain limits. I wonder if the 300 projectiles fired in Israel are within those limits. And what we're seeing here is that the U.S. apparently gave a green light to Iran to retaliate against Israel's assassination of one of the architects of October 7th. What exactly is going on here? To help us make sense of what happened, what it means, and what we might be seeing going forward, we turn to our good friend, Mideast military and geopolitical expert, Reserve Major Elliot Chodov. Elliot, welcome back to Eyes on Israel.
Thanks, Pesach. Good to be back.
So, Elliot, about 2 months ago, President Donald Trump was on Maria Bartiromo's show on Fox News, and she told an interesting story He told an interesting story. President Trump said that after the assassination of Soleimani, the Iranians actually informed the Americans that they'd be retaliating, but that it wouldn't be too serious and not to overreact to it. That they wanted to retaliate to save face, but they didn't want a regional war. And now this time we're hearing reports through Turkey and elsewhere that there was also a similar communication that Iran was going to attack. Although I struggle to see how this attack by Iran was not designed to inflame tensions. After all, it was a huge attack. So how do you interpret what we're seeing here? Did Iran actually want to go to war with Israel? And if not, why the scale of the attack?
So first of all, let's start with a little bit of background and if you will, a slight correction. It's not the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, it's the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps.
Thank you.
Its purpose is to spread the Islamic revolution worldwide. Iran and Israel have been at war since 1979. What happened this past Saturday night was a qualitative escalation of that war, but not the outbreak of that war. That's been going on for decades, and it's been open warfare between Israel and Iran for quite a number of years, just not between Iranian territory and Israel. Because we've been dealing with Iranian threats and Iranian attacks, first of all, worldwide through what I call the shadow and proxy wars, but also directly, taking out the IRGC leadership in Damascus was a direct attack on Iran. Let's be clear on that. Not Iranian territory per se, but Iranian targets. So this has been going on for a very long time. What happened in the aftermath was, I hate to say this, but rather typical of American meddling and muddling in the Middle East. Historically, America, first of all, has never supported an Israeli offensive strike of any type whatsoever, going back to the day that Israel came into existence. It opposed the strike of the Six-Day War. It effectively opposed a preemptive strike in 1973 in the Yom Kippur War. I can give you, it's a very, very long list because it's comprehensive. Now, Israel's done what it's done over the years, sometimes giving into American pressure as it did in 1973, catastrophically, and at other times not. The attack on the Iraqi reactor, Osirak, for example, and others. And to me, the question is always, when America says we won't support it, the key words are whether it says don't do it or else. The or else here becomes very, very critical. So I'm not terribly concerned about that, but let's go back. Israel takes out these Iranian generals, and at that point, the Biden administration makes a strategic error. And it immediately informs Iran, we didn't do it, we had nothing to do with it, don't hit us, which whether was intended to mean or not, you may hit Israel and we won't intervene. That's what's understood in Tehran. Okay, so I don't know what the intention was, but I know what the consequences were. And at that point, the Iranians ramp up their rhetoric, and we're gonna respond, and we're gonna respond, and we're gonna respond. And America comes to realize quickly on, within a couple of days, that they've made a mistake. They've basically given Iran the green light to do what it's been planning to do ever since Khomeini came to power, and that is to hit Israel with some sort of a mortal strike. At that point, America shifts gears and says, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. And that's when the coalition basically forms. And in the shadows of that is a message to Iran, you know what, if you do something symbolic, we won't make a big issue about it, but make sure it's just symbolic. Iran, by this point, is on its own treadmill. In other words, it's now running at a different speed, and it launches the attack that you described. By the way, don't forget the 100 rockets fired by Hezbollah into the Golan that night. Add that to the 300-plus weapons that were fired out of Iran. And with that, the grand coalition, if you will, and here with all due disrespect to the statement that President Biden said the other day, it wasn't America and its allies that stopped the attack. It was Israel and its allies that stopped the attack. It was a coalition that combined good intelligence, even superb intelligence, superb coordination, You know what? A multinational coalition operating at that level of coalition is very, very impressive. Credit where credit is due. American, whether it's cajoling or pressure on Saudi Arabia and Jordan to be full participants, at least in terms of full cooperation. And of course, Britain and France and their contributions, and the Israeli defense system, whether it was the ground-based missiles or the Air Force, aircraft went out over Jordan and went out east. And the first wave of drones was taken out way, way, way to the east of us.
If you could talk about what you think Israel should do, because it's not so clear that escalating things is in the best interest of Israel right now. At the same time, we need to have deterrence.
Okay, so first of all, we don't have deterrence. Deterrence failed totally on Saturday night. The attack shows that we have no deterrence. Iran took the possibility of an Israeli response into account and ignored it. So forget deterrence. Deterrence is off the table as far as I'm concerned, which is why I'm going to say something you're going to find a little strange. I'll have to explain it really quickly. I don't believe that we should retaliate, because retaliation is in a deterrence frame. We're at war. In war, you don't retaliate. At war, you strike. You strike at strategic targets. You think strategically. There's word this morning that America has agreed to support a Rafiah operation if we don't have a massive retaliation against Iran. I think it's a good trade. In other words, thinking strategically means dealing with all the threats around you, with all of your coalition alliances, and coming up with the least bad, because there's no best here, right? The least bad option that you can get. And here, keeping this coalition together, finishing off Hamas and Rafiah, in my opinion, is more important than some sort of symbolic slap.
Elliot Chodoff, I wish we had more time for this. We're going to have you back on very soon. There's so much to talk about in this. Right. Thank you so much for joining Eyes on Israel. God bless. We'll be right back with more Eyes on Israel in just a moment.